Welcome everyone. Today we have another new episodes, and this episode actually we're going to discuss about ethical financing, and we have our expert for this field, Mr. Ramlan. He has a lot of experience from Malaysia, but now he live in Vietnam. We have Mr. Gopinath, and we have our famous speaker, Dr. Tausif Malik. Already he support us for World Talent Economy Forum. So I just want to start with Mr. Ramlan. Just can you please introduce yourself, then Mr. Gopinath, and then we will go to Dr. Tausif Malik, and we will discuss about this ethical financing. So Mr. Ramlan. Mr. Ramlan, we cannot hear you. Hello. No problem. Can you please rejoin with us? We have Mr. Gopinath. Can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Gopinath, aka G. That's my nickname. I'm based here in San Francisco, California. I'm in the emerging finance space. I host conferences and events in that arena. Yeah, that's just about me. I have an upcoming event as well. So yeah, that's my area of specialization. Emerging finance.
Okay, thank you. We have Dr. Tausif Malik. I request to Dr. Tausif Malik, can you please introduce the concept of ethical financing, as well as what does it mean for ethical financing at present world?
Thank you, Mr. Dr. Sharif, and the panelists, Mr. Ramnan and Gopinath, to be on the panel. Ethical finance has become a big buzzword, thanks to the progressive economic, political movement which is happening in Europe and America, where people-centric policies have become very important. And it's counter to the crony capitalism way, where the rich become richer and the poor becomes poorer. So ethical finance means that you invest into business which are ethical. For example, when you're looking at farming, it has to be grown organically. It should not harm the farms or the environment. When you're talking about processed food, the whole processing food should be chemical free or limited chemicals. So during the process of production, the chemicals are not dumped. So investors looking for businesses which are looking for sustainable ecosystem and not damaging the environment. So for a normal person, this is what we are looking at ethical finance.
Sharif, unmute, Sharif.
Okay, my question is that can you please introduce yourself, and can you hear me? Mr. Gopinath, can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Tausif, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So anyway, Mr. Gopinath, can you please share with us about the ethical financing issues, as well as you live in Silicon Valley? How do you want to share the financial strategy with our audience?
Yeah. Sorry, I have a baby. I have an infant in the background. Sorry. So financing is it's in Silicon Valley has been the main issue for people that are trying to start companies. Have startups that don't have access to capital. So it has, we call it impact finance, we call it ethical finance across the pond. So there are a lot of different I think terminologies for it, but really the intention of ethical finance is to fund things that impact us in a more personal way. And there are many branches impacting communities, impacting the environment. So how do you want to, you know, channel capital into ideas that have a positive impact around us? And they're not always motivated by uh, uh, profit making. So I think, of course, incentives have to be there. Profit making should be a part of, every business has to be, has to be sustainable and profitable. But also, I think the access for capital is an ethical access for capital, and of course, mainly, halal finance and some of those areas where they can invest in, um, you know, interest making or other kind of certain kind of operations, but they're more interested in free flowing structures. So there are interesting ways that we could, you know, open those markets to this in access to capital to the largest segment of the population.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Ramlan, can you hear me?
Can you hear me, Sharif?
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Good.
Yes. Can you please introduce yourself, as well as if you introduce the concept of ethical financing and how
Okay.
it's important for the present economical aspects and other things?
Okay. Assalamualaikum and
Walaikum assalam.
Sharif, Dr. Tausif. Um, um, you know, I've been in this country in Vietnam for the last 2 years. Um, Originally, I'm from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. That's where Sharif is. I started coming into Vietnam to look at two things. Yeah, if you look at the economy indicators among ASEAN, Vietnam is one of the top three. Yeah, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of talent, in terms of growth. Despite COVID-19, last year Vietnam is going to register, I think, about 4% growth. Normally they are hovering over 7.5. So despite COVID, they've done about 4% growth GDP. And to me, I've spoken this earlier to Dr. Tausif, telling him the potential in Vietnam. I look at Vietnam is another hot spot for halal, be it in production, food production, aquaculture, agriculture, you name it, and also services. So Vietnam have everything except for halal ecosystem. They do not have, which we can understand. There's only about less than 200,000 Muslim in Vietnam. Very small community, and to an extent they are marginalized. They are only restricted to madrasah and mosque around Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi and the southern provinces. So to me, ethical financing, I think the potential is big. I discussed this with Dr. Tausif earlier about doing a startup. I've been doing a lot of groundbreaking halal promotion, you name it, getting the business community to understand what halal is. Out of the hundreds of thousands SMEs in the country, currently there are about more than 500 companies are halal compliant companies, mainly in the manufacturing of food, F&B. So the potential going for the products, not from the mainstream, because sometimes when you speak to this business community, namely either they produce coffee or tea or cashew nuts, they say they've been doing this business for the last 20 years. To change them going into the halal ecosystem and halal compliances is quite tough. So I think ethical financing into the startup, that would be something that we can look at. That's why I'm trying to get Dr. Tausif to share with me some of the um, processes that we can uh, get onto the Vietnamese community, especially the younger generations, irrespective, yeah, whether they're Muslim or not Muslim. Like I said, the Muslim youth, unfortunately, they, they're not going into the bandwagon. It's very sad. There are about 8 mosques here in Ho Chi Minh. I see the youth. Uh, some of them graduated from the Islamic University in Malaysia. Graduated 2 years ago, 3 years ago, coming back to Vietnam, still unemployed. So perhaps we can look at how best to get this ethical financing and get the startup going. That's my take.
Mhm. Okay, thank you, Dr. Tosif. As you have a lot of experience on uh, Islamic finance, most important thing is that like you are developing different startup, different ecosystem, and different initiative with the Muslim communities. Beside that, we have in World Talent Economy Forums, we have friends from around the world. Even we have many friends, those who are not Muslim, but they have keen interest about Islamic finance and what you call ethical financing. Can you share like deep analysis on ethical financing for our like hundred of different guests from Europe, North Americas, and other countries?
You mean to say
Can you please
how
unmute?
Islamic finance is different? Because I couldn't hear. You mean to say you want to know about how Islamic finance is different by other finance?
Exactly.
Okay. As I said last time, America is the cornerstone for modern economics. And when you actually see our founding father, Thomas Jefferson, wrote the entire American Constitution based on Quran. And I'll just give you key points. America is the only country where you get daily and weekly paychecks, which is based on hadith. Before the sweat of the worker dries up, pay them the money. So that is one thing. And because of that, it creates economic vibrancy every day. Unlike other countries, you have to wait for a month. The other thing is employee stock options. There's a hadith which says if your staff makes something, give him a certain portion from your food. So if somebody is working, you have to give them either equity or stock. So stock options evolve there. Then everyone should get an opportunity. So in America, you can start a business with limited money. Unlike other countries, you have to set up, cost is too high. So Islam has been forefront of entrepreneurship. And when you look at Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, if there are 10 parts of income, 9 parts have to come from tijara, business. Now, America is the only country which talks about business every day. No other country. Like I have an experience working with different countries, and America actually works very fast. You tell them by evening, they decide. No waste of time. That's why American economy works very fast. Now, the problem with the Islamic economy, where everyone talks about, either they talk about halal expos or they talk about riba. They don't talk beyond that. That's a big problem. That's why there is no innovation happening. And most of the modern scholars, when you talk to them, they only say bid'ah and shirk. Bid'ah means innovation, and shirk is like you are putting somebody with God. But if you don't do innovation, how can you develop a new economy? Right? So they just put bottlenecks by saying stuff, and that's why innovation is not happening. And when you look at 1,000 years ago, and there's a BBC documentary, the Muslim scholars were pioneer in innovation, algebra, all these theorems evolved there. And unfortunately now it is just bid'ah and shirk and halal expert. Right, Mr. Ramlan? This is a problem which is evolving. And what we're trying to do is, we are saying innovation, education is very critical. And Islam is a high proponent. There's an ayat in the Quran. It says, what has been allowed to you, eat that. If you don't eat them, they will eat you. Don't do wastage. So ethical, sustainable things come from Islam. And America actually follows most of that stuff. Like I'm a proud American in that. And where, yeah, there are a few things about healthcare and education expensive, but otherwise If you have a good idea, you can thrive. There is no other place. Now, we'll come back to Islamic finance. Now, Islamic finance, you have Malaysian model, you have Bahraini model, now you have Dubai model, now you have Astana model coming up. But everyone only talks about interest, interest, interest. There is no way out. And some new scholars, they have become too greedy. What they're saying, instead of giving the zakat and fitrah to people, invest in business. How can you use charity money in business development? Means they're not saying put your own money, but take the right of a poor person. So this is the big problem happening. But coming back, $5 trillion halal economy is big. Mr. Ramlan is the one of the oldest pioneer in the halal economy. I am just a guy 10 years ago got into this by default. He's an active member, you know. He spotted opportunity in Vietnam. And today I have Mr. Gopi. He's the first guy actually, when I launched my Halal Angels network, he messaged me and we had 2 hours talk. And he says, Doc, ethical finance means a lot of sense. Impact finance means a lot of sense. And I'm doing Funding Stack Summit. Please come and talk. That means there are a lot of people who are thinking about ethical finance. So I thank Gopi now publicly on the third different platform, not on our social media, but he's the guy who understood the day one that it is what required.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. There is one of the specific questions from my friend Mr. Jashan. How do you feel about UBI, Universal Basic Income, in context with Islam? So I want to give chance to Mr. Ramlan as well as Mr. Gopi. That how do you want to analyze these questions?
Go ahead.
Yes,
Go ahead, Gopi.
Mr. Yes.
UBI, I think universal basic income. I don't think so. I can talk in the context of Islam because I don't have that much knowledge, but I can generally talk in the context of UBI or universal basic income. I think most Western countries have some sort of UBI. If you fall below a poverty level, so giving somebody a basic check. I mean, let's talk what UBI is. Universal basic income is that everybody gets a certain amount of money every month, irrespective of whether they work or not, as a form of incentive or as a form of a way for them to survive or thrive in this world. So in the Western world, there's just two concepts, which is, I would say, which is what we call general assistance, which is, I would say, it's different from UBI. General assistance, when you fall below or when you fall into poverty and you don't have opportunities to make an income, you get general assistance. UBI, on the other hand, it's a basic income standard that every individual will get, some basic income or a salary from the government. So there's been some tests here. There's some cities that are testing UBI, and people, there's kind of competing theories about it. It disincentivizes people from work, and a lot of people against it, a lot of people for it. So really, it's there's a lot of experiments going on. But my take on it is that if someone is let's say starting a business or starting an arts project or something like that, and they would want to focus on that, they should be able to apply for grants or some kind of UBI, so that they can pursue, let's say, a career or a business or something in the arts and crafts area. So they don't have to hold a job to pursue their dreams. So yeah, I think that would help people explore new opportunities and avenues if they don't have to worry about like paying their electric bill or paying their cell phone bill, paying rent. So if the basics are covered, I think that's what UBI should do, that people can pursue some important opportunities in their lives. And, a lot more people would pursue business opportunities, ideas, inventions. So that's, at least my take is, I think that's what, but on the other hand, people could misuse it, it might disincentivize people from going to work or doing the things, at least that's the theory, but mostly people here, when they get UBI in the US, it's part of a pilot program which was done in California and in some cities. They found people were paying, for their grocery bills or their cell phone bills or the expenses, and very rarely that form of income has been abused.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ramlan. Even after Mr. Ramlan, because this question is very interesting about UBI as well as in context of Islam. So I request Mr. Ramlan, I think about
Okay.
UBI, Mr. Gopinath already explained.
All right. It's interesting, I from Malaysia coming all the way to Vietnam. I'm not going to go into the context of BI so much, but I'm going to go into the context of minimum wage. I think the reason why there are a lot of investors coming into Vietnam is because of the minimum wage. Vietnam has 67 provinces. Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi, minimum wage is about $200 US a month. And then you go to the southern provinces and the centrals of provinces. Sometimes it's only 100 US a month. So the attraction for investors coming in to Vietnam is because of the minimum wage. You can't find any other countries that can give you this 100 US. I don't know how much 100 US can do for these people, but that's what it is. I suppose the Communist Party of Vietnam, they're looking at, like I said earlier, there's 98 million population, and you need to feed this 98 million population. I think government handouts are very rare in a socialist country like Vietnam. So what they need to do is they lower the minimum wage, and the faster this trade imbalance between US and China is going on, the better it is for countries like Vietnam, because I know for a fact that last year alone there are a lot of investors coming in from China and other parts of the world to operate in Vietnam because of this minimum wage. So the attraction, like I said, is yes, investors are coming in from China, from US, even the big boys, namely Nike and Adidas, and you name it, Samsung, the electronic giants are coming in due to the minimum wage attraction in Vietnam.
Okay, Dr. Tosif, how do you want to analyze this point, specifically UBI in terms of Islamic context? Can you please unmute yourself? Dr. Tosif, can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, in Islam, the society is individual, household, community, and the country. So when you talk about universal basic income, there's something called Baitul Mal, where the state collects everything and tries to redistribute back to, depending on the requirement of the society. That's called Baitul Mal. Okay, that's one. So it becomes something like Social Security in America, where you all put in money and you get it back. The second thing is, in Islam, you're encouraged to give monthly or daily charity. That helps people to get covered by the basic expenses. If somebody's falling behind, you give them zakat, sadaqah. And during Ramadan, you give 2.5% zakat and fitra, not to organizations, which has become a big modern problem. You have to find a poor person in your neighborhood, develop relationship with them, and give them the money. So the state gives something like Baitul Mal, and then individual gives sadaqah every month, and on Ramadan you give zakat and fitra. And universal basic income, when you look at Europe, and especially Scandinavian countries, which is Denmark, Sweden, Holland, Iceland, they do more of UBI, where the taxes are high, but you get 6 month maternity leave even for a man now. So you're not worried when you have a child. You're not worried when you're going to college. You're not worried when you're getting married. You pay high taxes, but you get everything back. But in America, taxes are low, but we don't get anything back unless and until you go poor, as Gopi said, general assistance. But in Scandinavian countries, you don't have to go poor. You can just get your assistance. And that's why when you look at Sweden, even though it's very small country, most of the unicorns or successful startups have come from Sweden. So I think UBI is a good concept. Yes, for every policy, there will be always people who will manipulate it. But if you put a good plan and if you use technology like blockchain, so you can eliminate wastage from that. So I think it's a good concept.
Thank you. Uh, Mr. Ramlan, my questions to you, as you are living Vietnam, as well as you have a very good experience from, uh, you have a really good experience from Malaysia. So how do you want to define this Islamic country ecosystem? Because from our global community, they want to learn more about Asia Pacific, specifically for Malaysian ecosystem and economical system.
Okay, you know the it is a huge comparative differences. If you look at coming from matured Islamic country Malaysia, and I dive into Vietnam, which is totally opposite of what we do. But uh, what I can share is in Vietnam, the economic spurs among the community and also the business community in the country, um, very simple. There is no handouts, in a socialist country, unlike what I'm used to. Because as you know, Sharif, there is a Bumiputra, non-Bumiputra thing in Malaysia. There are a lot of handouts. The government are helping the son of soil. Uh, being Bumiputra means they are Islam, they are Muslim, so government is helping out. But not in Vietnam, and I am very attracted the way government in Vietnam, because it's very simple. The basic infrastructure is there. How you take it and how you move and make yourself relevant in the economic context is up to you. So you have, maybe I should not be saying this, but if you look at in terms of development between Malaysia and Vietnam, we're about 20 years ahead. But the way the country has been progressing in the last 10 years, uh, it outpaced even Singapore for that matter. Why? Because the infrastructure is not as we have. I'm not sure that you remember. We have this multimedia super corridor in Cyberjaya, Putrajaya. We have all the infrastructure, but what happens to the infrastructure? It does not give the return as what the government was looking for. But in Vietnam, there's no such thing as multimedia super corridors. Everybody has his own way of doing business. Government don't even give any platform, but the encouragement from them to do the free enterprise is huge. So where do I prefer? I think I've been here for the last 2 years. I think I like what I'm saying. If not, I wouldn't be making my trip here and doing FDI in Vietnam, trying to unravel more of this halal economy in Vietnam. So I put my every dollar in this country, Sharif.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you. But one point, like we believe that talent is everywhere. Even World Talent Economy Forum, we are trying our level best. You can see from people from 100 different countries, they are joining in World Talent Economy Forums from North America, from Europe to everywhere. And one thing we are ensured that how we can connect the talent peoples with proper strategy. Even from Malaysia, like we introduce few autonomous vehicles, one autonomous vehicle as an startup in Silicon Valley in California with enter capitals. So now they are developing. So Malaysia also have talent, but we have to integrate it the right talents based on the demand. So we find even the he's a very young man, but from my aspect he's a very talented. He can compete in global arena. So talent is everywhere. It's in Malaysia, it's in Singapore, it's in India, everywhere. So Mr. Salem, can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Salem, can you hear me? Anyway, I think today our honorable guests, everybody has some issues with internet. Anyway, Dr. Tausif Malik. So as you are working with different kind of startup, as well as we are observing that in present COVID situation, startup actually growing very fast, especially tech startup. How this tech startup getting benefit from this Islamic finance and this kind of things? Can you unmute yourself?
COVID, in fact, COVID has been, the COVID has given us a great opportunity because Halal Angel story has gone like crazy. Today we had very interesting meeting in Italy. People from Italy started calling up, and he's not a Muslim guy. He's a chartered accountant who's ethical into business, and he says, "I like your idea. Can we work together?" 3 days ago, I get a call from somebody from Netherlands. He wants to come on board. And so what's happened is ethical crony capitalism, and in fact, COVID has actually shown how crony capitalism has benefited. You see all the top tech billionaires, they have made more money. So it is an opportunity for everyone to see how crony capitalism works, how ethical finance works, and how we can leverage. But the biggest thing which is happening right now is we are working with one European country very seriously. And one of the city councils is so serious about hosting halal ethical finance summit anytime when the COVID situation dries up.
Mhm.
So that means there is an opportunity for ethical financing and there is an opportunity for startups. But the problem I see, the big problem is not from the investor side. It is from the startups which approach us. Either the people who are Muslims who are doing startups, they come very apologetic. Oh, sir, please look at my stuff. That is one. Secondly, it is a copycat version of somebody else. He just changed the name to show me. This another problem I see. Third thing is, they are not ready to work. Fourth thing is, you try to help them out, they run away. So out of 100 people, if we for just taking it out, only 3 people are quality people where you can really work. Sometimes when you tell them, we are a matchmaking site, you have to pay $50 for registration. And you know what they do? I can't pay $50. So what kind of entrepreneur you are? If you can't juggle up $50, that means you're not going to run the business well. Then they say, oh, I have been struggling with 4 years of business. If your business is not growing in 4 years, you should close it and start something else. It is better that way than rather waste your time. Like look at all of us. COVID gave us opportunity, we picked it up. Mr. Ramlan was fantastic in his Malaysia, he moved to Vietnam. Till that time you don't move, you will never see an opportunity. And when we had a meeting with Mr. Ramlan like 2 weeks ago, he saw an opportunity, we signed an agreement right away, Mr. Ramlan, right? Because we want to grow faster. Anything which doesn't work, we have to leave. We can't be emotional. So most of the people I face since like 7 months now is either they're too emotional, they cry a lot. Maybe I should talk to Oscar Awards to start a award ceremony for all these crying entrepreneurs. You know, they cry very well, and the good ones don't cry. So we should do that. And I
Okay.
think there's somebody who put a question about ethical finance.
Mhm.
What does it mean, business to be ethical?
Mhm.
Business to be ethical, you have to pay your supplies on time. You have to give right price to your customer. If the customer is not happy, give them back the money. You have to be honest to the government, pay your taxes on time. Don't go and mess up with your competition. Everyone has a role to play in the society. Don't then mess with their lives. Do your business, be ethical, be honest. Whatever is there, be honest. So
Mhm.
this is what
Thank
I
you.
think ethical is.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. World Talent Economy Forum, we are very much focused on like ethics as well as honesty and sincerity. So soon we're gonna go for our fundraising. So I think we
But
getting support from.
Dr. Sharif, I have not still got my check from you. How are you saying ethical?
Okay, okay. Can you hear?
I said you're supposed to send me check. I didn't receive it. How come you're saying ethical?
No, no. Definitely, we try to make it 100% based on meritocracy, honesty, and sincerity, and that is our objective. So beside that,
Audience, I was just
yes,
joking with Dr. Sharif. He doesn't owe me any money. Just joking.
okay, 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 no problem. Oh, we have Mr. Ramlan, Dr. Mr. Salum. Can you hear me?
He needs to
Sorry.
unmute.
Okay. I think I think today our guest has internet problem as they joined from different countries. Anyway, Mr. Ramlan, my questions to you, like as you working with in Vietnam, and Vietnam, even though today from Asian reviews and other things, we are observing that Vietnam growing very fast, economy wise, they are growing very fast, as well as you are trying to implement this halal certifications and other things. What the real scenario? What you want to share for our audience from Vietnam?
Okay. Like I said, I came here 2018. I did my homework. I was on and off. I've been flying Kuala Lumpur to Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh since 2018. I came in, and finally, after 8 months, I've said, look, if I really want to start something 2019, I have to operate an office in Vietnam. I chose Ho Chi Minh because Ho Chi Minh is the commercial capital. Hanoi is more administrative. It's just like Putrajaya. So if you would ask me, what do I really want to do? I've got my four trusts for halal in Vietnam. First is to look at the industry development, and to look at the certification part, to look at the training, and also to look at B2B. Yeah? I mentioned earlier that about 500 companies, only 500 companies out of hundreds of thousands SMEs in Vietnam, only 500 have been certified halal, which is given by the local certification company. So what we need to do is we need to really rally, and I mentioned this to Dr. Tausif. I say, look, perhaps if Brazil
Mhm.
can become the source of uh, uh, poultry to Islamic countries, Australia with a beef, why can't Vietnam? Um, in ASEAN, there are 500 over million population, and Muslim is about 250 million. Why can't Vietnam become the new halal hub for Muslim? So my role is looking at Vietnam, trying to get the local government. As a matter of fact, on November 30th last year, I was invited by Malaysian ambassador to Vietnam to participate in the first halal forum organized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Hanoi. So we talk about this. But what I found missing in Vietnam is they do not have the institution to champion halal. Everything is done on piecemeal basis. So my next meeting is with the one of the provincial government in Bắc Ninh, which is about 40 kilometers from Hanoi, is trying to tell the local government, look, if you want to do halal, you must have a roadmap. Yeah, you cannot just take halal, you do one forum and you think halal will fly. It doesn't work that way. It took Malaysia 43 years Jack came to come up with 43 years, and now we've got problems. But let's look at Vietnam needs to come up with serious um, the central government and also the provincial government to identify, like, we want to do this in a serious manner. I've been working on it, like I said, for the last 2 years, doing a lot of grassroots level, and so it is WIP is work in progress. So that's my take, Sharif.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Mr. Salam, can you hear me? Mr. Salam, can you hear me? Uh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My next questions to Dr. Tausif Malik. Uh, like this is from audience. Tahrina, what is the ethical behavior in a business environment? And I want to take another questions from Mr. Shihab. How should intraday money market be efficient, organized, and private or publicly? Dr. Tausif. Mr. Salam, can you unmute yourself?
The question says intraday money. I know intraday money, but I'm not an expert on that, so I can't really comment. The discussion is ethical financing, and the other lady talked about ethical environment. The ethical environment is, as I said earlier, is the founder or the owner or the manager of the company should make sure that the business plan aligns with ethical behavior, such as the products and services should not be damaging to the environment, the manufacturing
Mhm,
process or the byproducts. The other
mhm,
thing is the supplier should be paid on time, the staff should be paid on time, the taxes should be paid on time, and everything has to be transparent. Now, that's why blockchain becomes a very important aspect. On blockchain, everything is transparent. So
mhm,
if anybody wants to talk, you can just share the API and they can see how the whole process would come on that. Okay. So for example, now we talk about, uh, uh, agriculture where we don't use pesticides. So blockchain will say, how from farm to fork, all the process where it will be put, which kind of chemicals, for organic farming. So this way, technology will help eliminate all these issues. And as Mr. Ramlan talked about, the recent meat controversy, if you were using blockchain technology, that issue would not come. And the other problem I see is anybody goes for 6 months certification course, halal becomes a halal expert. Very, very challenging. We chose, Dr. Najam Rehan as a halal expert guide because he's a medical doctor, he's a scientist, he's a manufacturer, he's a businessman, and he's also Islamic scholar. So when he reviews my whole process, he will not look at from a single point. He will evaluate all the businesses, whether scientifically it's correct, whether it's medically correct, whether from a business point correct, or whether from Islamic point correct. So I see this as anybody does a 6 months course becomes an expert. It's not like that. It takes time. And there's a lot of corruption I've heard from people that these certification organizations, when you pay them, they give you a certificate. You know, like when we started one, somebody is saying, do you have a panel for, halal board? As a practicing Muslim, we don't need halal board. We should be so empowered to know what is right or wrong, right? Every time do we go to a lawyer to say if my business is correct? Do we run to a chartered accountant? We don't run to a chartered accountant because we know basic accounting is important. So for a Muslim, you should know what are the basic things to run a halal business. You don't need a certification. Like when you go to a butcher, does he look at the halal certification? No, he knows how to slaughter it, right? He knows how to pay. I mean, I'm just saying example. So what's happened is too many people have said, no, you have to have a. It's not like that. Ethical and halal business, you have to be self-reliant on yourself. Like in America, there was a big supermarket in California. They were mixing non-halal meat with halal meat. Everywhere it happens. And the American government says if you find somebody, take them to court. Means the government is more important than that. So you don't need boards technically for me. You need boards where people don't understand. For a practicing Muslim, you know what is good for environment, what is Islamic finance, how to run your business ethically. That's the way it should be. Otherwise, there'll be always controversy, and people who issue certificates will become too powerful. And when they become too powerful, corruption starts coming in. Do you agree, Mr. Ramlan?
Yes, yes, Mr. Salum, can you introduce yourself, and do you want to share with us about the ethical financing? Mr. Salum, can you hear me? Anyway, Mr. Ramlan, there are a few questions from audience. Can you unmute yourself? Okay, Noor Fazrin, her questions like what do ethics and ethical behavior have to do with financing?
I think coming. I think that the question is from Malaysia. Um, we in our country, you've got the Bank Islam Malaysia. You've got even HSBC and Standard Chart, and with all this ethical and Islamic financing which are available in the country. But unfortunately, if we were to introduce this Islamic financing in Vietnam, it will be a nightmare because Vietnam don't even have, and I'm talking from a perspective in Vietnam. Vietnam don't even have a governing body to look at this financing, ethical financing from the Islamic perspective. So there's none. Um, Going back to what Dr. Tausif was mentioning earlier, I think ethical is we've got to have a self-reliance. Yeah. Uh, you mentioned about this Jakim fiasco. Why does it happen in our country? Because Jakim has been too powerful. That's number one. Number two, when you are so strict, yeah, I was made to understand when it comes to certification overseas products, yeah, you talk about cattle or poultry, it's so difficult to get the certification either in Australia or in Brazil or Argentina. I know one guy has been trying to get certification for uh, goat product from Pakistan. The other day, I attended this Pakistan Malaysia webinar organized by HDC. They're saying, why does the simple stuff other countries are following that they could give the certification ease? I mean, not easily. What I'm saying is, you've gone through the process, you understand the entire process, and yet it took them more than 12 months to say yay or nay. So back to the question whether how do we define ourselves in ethical. I think it's very simple. Do we put ourselves in that category whereby we want to make known that what we're doing is ethical enough? So it's tough.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
coming from Vietnam perspective, they're very simple. Yeah, financing is financing, and one thing I like about this country, bringing the funds into Vietnam is very easy. Taking them out is definitely a no-no in Vietnam. You got to have so many reasons to expatriate your funds out of Vietnam. So that is the stand in Vietnam.
Mhm. Thank you. One specific point I want to ask to this panelist, in terms of business smartness, developing world-class organizations, business innovations, and this kind of things, how actually Islamic uh, business organizations they are preparing themselves. We know that at present business perspective and other things, we need to be very much innovative. We need business research. We need a lot of strategy, global strategy. and we need to be very much like we have to take the first mover advantage. But I want to know the inner strategy of Islamic organization, those who are working for the global arena. Dr. Tosif.
Mr. Dr. Sharif, yeah, there are two, three questions which are related to it. One where she's saying, Alia is saying, why should a business organization should have ethics in finance? Noor Fajin saying ethics and ethical behavior in financing, and then high ethical standards in firms growth. Firstly, very important. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, honest businessmen will be raised with the prophets on the Yawm al-Qiyamah. Very important. Not Islamic scholar who is standing on the stage and saying, doing dawa ayat number 43, hadith number 63. Those guys will be not raised. It will be raised honest businessmen, because an honest businessman is that. Then the other hadith says, if 10 sources of income has to come, 9 sources have to be from tijara. And last time I told on your show that Abdul Rahman of Ashabi, Razina Tala, when he migrated from Makkah to Medina, and then his Ansar partner said, you can take everything half from mine. He said, show me the marketplace. He didn't become a lazy man and use his partner's money. He went to the market, he became a millionaire. Couple of months later, Bibi Aisha Razina Tala and Rasulullah were in their home, and Rasulullah said, what is this noise outside? And she says, let me check it out. She comes out and she looks, Abdurrahman of caravan. Some places it says 720 camels, some places say 7,200, some places says 72,000. I will take the least, 720. Now 720 camels with gold, silver, diamonds, it's millions of dollars, right? So he was an honest, ethical business. He grew. And the reason he took the caravan from the Prophet's family, he wanted to surprise the Prophet Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that how successful he became by following the rules and regulation of Islam. So Bibi Aisha Razindala goes, visits the Prophet inside, and she says, this is the caravan of Hazrat Abdurrahman of Razina. He smiles. That smile gets reflected on the smile of Bibi Aisha Razina. She comes out, and Hazrat Abdurrahman of looks at that smile. And he said, did he smile? Means he asked, did the Prophet Rasulullah smile? She said, yes, she nodded. And guess what? He distributed his wealth, not donated, to every poor person of Medina. Do we have ethical businesses, people doing that? No, we have not. Right? So coming back, Islam talks about entrepreneurship. Even all the Khalifas used to be a businessman. Unlike now, you become a super specialist dai or a fatwa scholar. But it's not like that. You have to know your Islam in and out, whether you're doing tijara. And when you do business, the good thing about business, it empowers the country totally. Forget your community, forget your house. It creates jobs. It creates demand. A job doesn't do that. And that's why in America, entrepreneurship is big. That's why America drives the whole world economy. Whatever you say about America, because it's the largest consumption of goods and services across the world. If America refuses anything, it goes into stock market turmoil. So ethics and business comes from our Islamic heritage, character, but right now it's not happening. Just getting into certification, just getting into a lot of talk, no action. And people who have never done business issues a halal certificate. Very challenging to understand that.
Thank you, Mr. Ramlan. What do you want to add specifically? There are few issues on ethical financing and organizational ethics. Mr. Ramlan, can you hear me? Mr. Ramlan, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Mr. Sharif?
Yes.
Yeah, well, go ahead. What was the
Yes,
question again?
like there is a few questions about ethical behavior in business, as well as ethical practice in organizations,
Yes.
as well as ethical standard in the business. So
Okay.
how do you want to introduce this point in terms
Okay.
of Islamic culture?
Um, you know, good point. I again, yeah, I've been in this country for the last 2 years, yeah, in Vietnam. I I I think although the government is socialist, there are not many things that culprits are in town. You know, I think you look at business per se in Vietnam, yeah. Just like in China, the Communist Party rules the country, but the economy is capitalist economy. Of course, there are unethical behavior and community coming in, but we have not heard anything like one MDB or some scandalous projects in Vietnam. Yeah, I've been here for 2 years. They might have it. I'm not sure. But I think what happened is, I'll give you one example is COVID-19. How come Vietnam is among the lowest cases in the world? Because I think the government have given them one very good advice. You either stay at home and we tell you to stay at home. That is number one. They are very law abiding. Number two, in Vietnam, putting a mask on has been going on for the last umpteen years, because the pollution is so huge in this country. They've got no choice but to put on the mask. So back to um, ethical practices between Malaysia and Vietnam. I think the law-abiding citizen in this country, 98 million population, very simple. Right up to now, there are only 200 over cases of COVID with less than, I think, 30 deaths. Yeah. So you talk about self-imposed, ethical in the sense of they operate. I think they're numero uno. I can add to say that I think I'm lucky, Sharif. I'm in Vietnam currently, not in Subang Jaya or in Kuala Lumpur for that matter. So my take is, the way they've been practicing in this country is something that the government of Vietnam can be proud of.
Mhm. Thank you, thank you, Dr. Tausif. My next questions, and this is the final question for today's sessions for both of you. Like, what your advice, especially for the startup, how they can utilize this Islamic finance for their business?
Firstly, like this is an advice across the board for startups, whether you're taking Islamic finance or regular finance. Firstly, be bootstrapped. Don't take anybody's money. Most of the startup guys are greedy to take somebody else's money. Like Mr. Ramlan used his own money to start his business. I start my own money to start his business. And you are doing your own business. On other people's fire, you can't cook your food. So I all advise to everyone, do bootstrap, build your customer base. Rather than chasing your investors, chase customers. The more customers you chase, you don't need investors. But majority of startups, like especially in India, I'm actually writing a movie. It's called Startup Ka Drama, drama of startups, where a startup guys smoke the cheapest cigarette. And when they get money from the investor, they start smoking cigars. And people who work in the IT industry get a golden handshake, and he becomes the mentor. Like he talking about term sheet, he's never seen a term sheet ever in his life, but he goes to Quora, Wikipedia, and gets all the buzzwords and starts giving knowledge to people. So there's a huge thing in the startup industry, but in America, these things don't happen. In America, people go ground level, build, a prototype. Then they go to Silicon Valley and build the whole thing. So here I tell, firstly, even though I run an angel network for investors, I tell everyone approaching me, please don't take money. Because if you take somebody's money, you become accountable for life. And if you die promising somebody something, on the Yom Kayama, even $1 will go against you. So the best way is not to take anybody's money, right? Means the best way I would say is like, I would joke here, but people might misunderstand. So I'll not joke here. But it's better that you do your own hard work. I could have something very funny, but it would go out of context. I didn't want to say that. Maybe in private discussion, I'll tell you that. But here I say is, now Mr. Ramlan is understanding what I'm trying to say. So, so here I advise everyone, don't take anybody's money, build your own business. Like I drove a taxi in America and I built my spelling bee. I could have taken a job and use the salary, but that's also haram, because when somebody pays you, he pays you for 8 hours. In 8 hours, even if I take one missed call or one WhatsApp message from my customer, it is going to be haram. So when we talk about halal and haram, that's very. And there was one question: how can you do ethical standards, high ethical standards? Very interesting. One of the imams, he was walking down the river Tigris in Iraq, and he finds one apple, and he eats the apple. Okay. Then he says there is no apple plantation here. He walks back upstream and he finds one tree with an apple lying in the river. He approaches the owner of the farm. He says, listen, I ate one apple. And before that apple digests in my stomach, I want to repay the money. So the owner says, okay, you can start cleaning the farm. He cleans the farm. He says, what next? It goes on for a couple of years. Then he says, is my value of the apple over? He says, no, you have to marry my daughter. And my daughter is one eye blind, one, she can't hear from one, she's like name from everywhere. He says, okay, he marries just to get the money out. But when he meets his wife, he's shocked. He says, tells the owner of the farm, that lady is totally wrong, because you told me somebody is handicapped, but she's beautiful girl. He says, my daughter has not seen a non-mahram. My daughter has not touched, stolen anything. My daughter has never put a wrong step. For the modern world, she's paraplegic, but for Islamic, she's not. And guess what? From his line, the biggest scholar of Islam came, Sheikh Abdul Qadir Gilani, Rahmatullah.
Mhm.
Okay. Now coming back, very important for all. There are a lot of girls talking about it. You don't have to go to halal board to get a certificate. If your mother is educated on Islamic sciences, she will teach you from day one what is halal and haram. And I'll tell you my experience, and I'll close here. When I used to work for somebody, I used to get 5,000 rupees as client entertainment money. And all my staff colleagues would put fake bills and take 5,000 rupees. So one day I decided to put my bills and claim that money. So I took 5,000 rupees, which was big amount in 90s, as a high school guy. I came home, bought some clothes, and my mother said, where did you get this money from? I said, this is the way, I put in fake bills and I got that money. She says, this clothes can't come in my house, throw it in the dustbin. As a young man, I fought with her. Then she says, okay, tell me why it is okay. I said, this money, my company will claim it from the government. So it's actually, I'm not cheating anyone. But my mother said, who does the government represent? The citizens of the country. On Yom El Kayama, that means you have cheated the government. You have to go to 1 billion Indians. Those days they were, and you have to ask forgiveness. I said no. From that day, I never cheated on my bills. I don't need a halal board to tell me that, or ethical board to tell me that. And guess what? When you follow Allah's law, my clients never needed entertainment. That is one. Now with the halal angels, when I started, I wanted to start a venture capital company. I could have done that. But my mother said, in venture capital, you're raising money from other people and giving it to other people. And by mistake, if you give $1 wrong, on Yom El Kayama, that $1 will go against you. Remember that. I stopped that whole project. And the other thing she said, if you raise $100 million, your mind will go kaput, bad. You'll become arrogant because the Iblis will manipulate your mind. I dumped that. So if you have a learned mother at home, you don't need halal board, because your ethical standards will every time come to control you. Wa dana fi hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala Habibullah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Uh, Mr. Ramlan, what do you want to add specifically on this advice for this startup? in terms of ethical financing as well as ethical business environment. Actually, Dr. Tausif come up with the Islamic context on that particular point.
I think I like what Dr. Tausif mentioned about, both of us, we did not take anybody's money. I was lucky. I was working in Malaysia, and then we have this employees provident fund. It's just like saving for the old age. I took the money out and invested in Vietnam. So for any, I know it's tough. Yeah, some youngsters out there say, okay, we want to start. I think the problem is, like Dr. Tausi mentioned, we give you money. Like I remember a couple of years ago, Malaysia used to give a grant, and they used to go and buy BMW. Rather than starting a business, they go and buy BMW, or they go and buy Mercedes, or the older ones go and have the second or third wife, because being Muslim you can have four. So this is a problem, when because it is not your own money, and it hurts us. I come all the way, I've invested. Can you imagine? Yeah, no income for the last 2 years for me. I'm only seeing the lights at the end of the tunnel towards the end of last year. So my advice is, if you believe in yourself, I'm 61. I believe in myself. At 61 years old, I came over to this country. So for the youngsters, in the 30s, which is nothing, I dropped everything. Here I am in Vietnam, started my own business, used my own money, and I feel good about it. And I can work with anybody I want to. Dr. Tausif is one of them, and maybe Sharif. Yeah, we can connect. At the end of the day, I'm not answerable to anybody except for Allah Taala, because your niyat have to be correct. So my niyat here is to start a halal hub in Vietnam. God willing, that we can do it. And Mr. Sharif, thank you very much for inviting me. So I hope this small knowledge which I have in this country called Vietnam can spur and help somebody else to get out from Malaysia or some other countries to go and find your niche. Thank you
Mm.
very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Actually, World Talent Economy Forum, we are trying to collaborate with around the world, and we try to reach the people, those who have talent like you, those who can help our community, especially in the COVID community. Like time, we need a better communities, and we are trying to do so. And beside that, I want to share that this year we want to arrange different kind of conference and academic related activities. So in terms of like ethical finance, Islamic finance, we have a very good response from around the world. So hopefully Dr. Tausif and Madam Mr. Ramlans and the other panelists, those who join and those who cannot join, they will help us. And beside that, I want to give special thanks to our audience, those who actually really support us a lot, and those who regularly communicate. I'm really sorry, like today there are some sort of internet related problems. It happens sometimes everywhere, because people live in Dr. Tausif live in India, Mr. Ramlan live in Vietnam, Mr. Salem, who want to try join in these sessions, he from Africa. So different people has from different countries, and they have some sort of internet problem. So hopefully our audience will understand. So I know that already you are going for the like you all of the question answer and everything. I directly want to go for the concluding remarks. First Mr. Ramlan, and finally Dr. Tausif for this concluding remarks for today's sessions.
Again, like I said, if any one of you out there who wants to know more about how can you participate in Vietnam, uh, please do some homework. If you look at the economic indicators and economic review, Vietnam is coming in real fast out of these ASEAN countries. If you have your special skill, that's something you want to do, not only halal business, 98 million population, 60% age below 35, very young population, mobility is high, and Vietnamese are very hungry, doing new things. And in fact, some of the diasporas, Vietnamese from Australia, from US, are coming back to Vietnam, to participate in this economy. If you have question, I can give my email address and phone number. get in touch. No problem. That is my parting shot, Sharif. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for today's discussion. Dr. Tausif.
Before the last question I answered, what knowledge I have is because my mother taught me from childhood. She was a young mother. She was 16, 17 when I was born. But she made sure that she taught me Islam every time. Every Thursday, she would make sweets. She would take Islamic stories from the Quran and read out. She taught me fiqh, sharia, and my mother's brother, he passed away 2 years ago. The whole thing here is halal income is very important. My father used to run a gas station in America for somebody, and he was like 70. He wanted to work. One day he got a heart attack, and there was $25,000 at the gas station. He got up and he still continued work, and his heart attack got bad. When he was put in ICU, his team members told me, "Your father was doing this. We told, that you're managing the whole thing. You should go to the hospital." He says, "This is not my money. This is somebody else's money. If something happens, I don't want to die that way. But when I died, that because of my death, somebody else got robbed off, and he passed away." So I thank my parents for feeding me halal income. And when somebody feeds you halal income, like, the sperm drop of a man should contain the halal income, and the eggs of a female should also contain halal income from a father's side. And when the child is born, automatically the child will have ethical bloodline. Unfortunately, we might have two meters long beard, but we might be raising millions of dollars of charity in the name of Islamic scholars, which was supposed to be miskin people's money, but there is no action. So ethical doesn't mean only this. Ethical means it comes from the when you plant the seed. It is not tomorrow I get up, I go to Mr. Ramlan, give me halal certificate, I want to run a business. He might give me for process and procedure, but everything will come back to me. So I encourage people to read Islam, not just listen to people's lecture, but sit with good scholars, open your mind, and teach your children when you have children. وآخر دعوانا في الحمد لله رب العالمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Walaikum assalam. Walaikum assalam. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I want to give special thanks because today's session is little bit of different because we have different inquiries about Islamic finance, and Dr. Tausif and Mr. Ramlan is expert on that particular point. Hopefully in the futures we will arrange more discussion like this, and we will share our knowledge and views with our audience. Thank you, our audience, those who joining today, and hopefully you will share our World Talent Economy Forum. We have many content right now. We have 100 and like more than 180 episode, as well as many speakers from around the world. They are joining, and all of them are scholars. So share our content. It's 100% free. We just want to share our knowledge in between the youth community, those who can change our global community, and they can solve all of the problem. Thank you everyone for joining today's sessions.